Queen Elizabeth now in her final resting place with her husband of more than 7 decades by her side. After a somber funeral service at Westminster Abbey this morning, the Queen is now buried at Windsor Castle with Prince Philip. King Charles and his siblings followed the Queen's coffin into Westminster Abbey this morning. Behind the Queen's children, her grandchildren, Prince William and Prince Harry, with their wives and their children. 2,000 people packed into the church for the service this morning. President Biden and about 500 other foreign dignitaries among them. During the funeral, the Archbishop of Canterbury praised the Queen's lifelong service to the UK.
Rarely has such a promise been so well kept. Few leaders receive the outpouring of love that we have seen.
On top of the Queen's coffin rested a note from her son, King Charles. It read, "In loving and devoted memory, Charles R." The R for Rex, meaning king in Latin. The wreath of flowers includes myrtle from a plant grown from a sprig in the Queen's wedding bouquet. After the service, her coffin made its 25-mile journey to Windsor Castle by carriage and eventually by state hearse. The procession through the streets of London lined with thousands of mourners. At one point, it stopped at Hyde Park. This satellite image shows all the people packed into that park as the procession was underway. Crowds also greeted the Queen's coffin in Windsor ahead of her committal service. There, 2 of her beloved corgis waited for her arrival. Her pony Emma also stood nearby as the state hearse made its way to the castle. During the committal service at St. George Chapel there, King Charles placed a flag on the Queen's coffin. Then the Lord Chamberlain, the most senior officer to the royal family, snapped his wand. That is a tradition symbolizing he's completed his duty in his post overseeing the Queen's funeral. Those the final acts before Queen Elizabeth's coffin lowered into the royal vault. Her family later holding a private service there, burying the Queen with her husband nearly a year and a half after his death. We have complete coverage tonight. Wilfred Frost on the significance of the Queen's funeral. First, CNBC's Valerie Castro, who spoke with some of the thousands lining the streets for the ceremonies. Valerie.
Shep, the funeral wrapped up several days of public mourning, and even though the service was limited to invited guests, people from all over the United Kingdom came to London to collectively say goodbye to their Queen. London was filled with the sound of a church choir. The Queen's funeral broadcast over loudspeakers while mourners watched the service in the palm of their hands.
Let us rejoice in her unstinting devotion to duty, her compassion for her subjects, and her counsel to her ministers.
Despite the thousands gathered, the crowd was mostly silent, solemn, and at times emotional, wiping away tears.
It's just a bit overwhelming. I don't know, even thinking about it, yeah, it's just everything.
The service punctuated by a 2-minute national period of silence, a moment of reflection.
One of the most moving experiences of my life, I think. You realise what you've lost. And we've lost an amazing person who represented our country brilliantly.
And finally, the national anthem.
It just reminds you how much pride I have for my country.
That pride on display as the carefully choreographed procession led the coffin through the streets of London, Big Ben tolling at each minute. The carriage eventually passing the crowds during the Queen's final journey through the capital. Following her coffin, King Charles III and his sons, Princes William and Harry, and in a car behind them, Prince William's 2 oldest children, 7-year-old Charlotte and 9-year-old George, who is now second in line to the throne.
They look so innocent, but so sombre, and seeing the 3 generations, and I just hope it just continues for generation. I really do.
The finality of the day, marking the end of a royal era.
We're doing everything that we can to say, well done, Queen Elizabeth II, well done.
Many are now looking ahead to what is next for the royal family, and that would be the coronation of King Charles. No official date has been set, but it will likely take place inside Westminster Abbey. That is where Queen Elizabeth's coronation was held and where her funeral service took place today. Shep.